Morning or afternoon, I guess, for some of you.
It just started afternoon on the East Coast.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. So
Hello.
we're getting started with this week's Queer Money Live. This week we are answering a question that comes from oftentimes people who are our haters, although not all of them are haters, but you would actually be surprised how many people outside and even inside the LGBT community are haters, do not like what we're doing. And we were surprised by that. But that's why we thought we would answer this question, because we know that that a number of you probably have this same question too. So the question that has come up more often than not is why or what, with all the personal finance experts out there, makes you qualified to talk about this, and why are you only talking to the LGBT community? So I think really what's there is that there are two questions, right? The two questions are, why are we qualified? With people like Dave Ramsey, Mr. Money Mustache, and Tiffany Alicia out there already, why are we qualified to talk about this? Well, we thought we would start by answering a little bit about our story as to how we got to become, or how we got to being the debt-free guys. So I'll give you a little bit of my backstory. In 1996 was when I began working in the financial services industry. And from 1996 all the way until 2017, so 21 years, I spent 21 years working in the financial services industry, whether that was for a mutual fund company or a brokerage firm. And so I have basically spent my whole career, all of my working life has been spent in some capacity in financial services, whether that was at a service level or talking to people on the phones, giving individuals suggestions and advice about how they should be structuring their investments, or how they should be, what kinds of accounts they needed to have, what they should do when someone was born into the family or someone passed away. All of those are things that I did. I encouraged individuals to do to become better financially. But as you know, we had some problems. But here's a little bit about John's backstory.
Sorry, I'm trying to get this URL done.
Go ahead.
And David gave me a task to set up as soon as we started this video.
It
was stressing me out. And so not too dissimilar from David, I started my career in financial services in 2000. At Charles Schwab, which I publicly announced a couple of days ago on Yahoo Finance. And I have been in financial services for the most part until about, officially I think till 2016, when I finally quit to focus on mine and David's business. But in that time frame, I did anything from customer service to trading, to I was an advice specialist for 2 years, helping people choose investments and create portfolios. And then I kind of started to migrate to supervision and compliance. And my last 2 years in financial services was actually in compliance, working with different retail investment advisors and advisory firms, creating their codes of ethics and their policies and procedures. So I had my whole career in financial services. Kind of fell into it by accident, but I've loved it, and it's been great, and I'm glad I'm here at this point.
Right. So between the two of us, we have roughly about 37 years or actually 38 years of time in the financial services industry. And that was before we started to become the debt-free guys. So we have a lot of history, a lot of experience in financial services. But as many of you know, we have a debt backstory. And that was because as individuals, like the cobbler's kids with no shoes, we were not actually doing what we were telling other people to do. That's, as John mentioned in that Yahoo Finance video, that's the reason why financial advisors declare bankruptcy and nurses smoke. So oftentimes you'll find that—
Hi, Maria.
Hey, Maria. You'll find that people in particular industries are not necessarily taking the advice that they are doling out. And so here's a little bit of my backstory when it comes to debt. When I was 19, my parents decided to allow me to take a trip over to Ireland and England to see people that I had grown up with. We had spent some time, a year and 9 months living in Ireland. And so my parents said that it was okay if I went over there on vacation. I saved up some money and I did that. But before I left, my mom signed as a co-signer on a credit card for me. She said that was only for emergencies. And as John likes to say, although I never saw the back of an ambulance or the inside of a jail cell, I came back with a credit card that was maxed out. I learned then how easy it was to use a credit card to spend on credit, and I could get the things that I wanted without having to pay for them right away. Now, fast forward all the way until roughly 2008, and that is when I finally paid off my credit cards for good. So it was 17 years that I had a credit card in my name that had a balance on it the whole time. 17 years. So I have a history of being in debt, but then as John and I have shared with many of you, we created a plan and paid off our debt. So that's one of the other reasons why we have some credibility in telling people how to manage their debt.
Yeah, my story is a little bit different. After I graduated college, I moved out to Colorado from Pennsylvania. And I actually had $5,000 cash in my account that my grandparents gave me as a graduation gift. So I was in the surplus. But when I got to Denver, I decided that I need to have all the grown-up stuff, and I need to make sure I fit into Denver in the Colorado scene. So I furnished my new apartment with wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling Pottery Barn furniture. And I bought brand new boarding equipment, skis, bindings, boots, new clothing, everything. I mean, I looked fabulous. Unfortunately, within less than a year of moving out to Colorado, I had amassed over $25,000 in credit card debt. So I had spent $30,000, only $5,000 of which I had. And then I had that debt until David and I both finally paid off both of our combined credit card debt until 2008. So despite having my debt maybe for a shorter period of time than David probably paid, despite me having more credit card debt, David probably paid about the same in credit card interest rates because I had so much more credit card debt than he did. So I really brought a lot of debt to our relationship. And that kind of came to a climax at one point when we became jealous that we couldn't have the lifestyle that we wanted.
Right. So a little bit about our debt backstory ending, and some of you may have heard this aha moment story of ours. John and I went up to Winter Park, Colorado to visit a friend of John's, the guy that he had moved out to Colorado with. He and his girlfriend were living up in Winter Park, which is a cute little ski town. It's a great place to go visit. We went up there and we both had been there before, but when we were there together, something happened and we both decided that this is a great place where we could see ourselves vacationing regularly, spending a lot of time up there. So we said, oh yes, let's buy land and build a house. We came up with this fantasy idea of buying land and building a house. And this was going to be a vacation home. So we left town on Sunday afternoon on this high idea of that we could buy land and build a house. And we fortunately were locked in a car together for an hour and a half, and we started to have a conversation about being able to buy land and build a house. Well, we went from an elevation of 9,200 feet, and as we dropped in elevation down towards Denver, our conversation literally went downhill. We went from having this idea of buying land and building a house to maybe being able to buy a condo to maybe we shouldn't be going up there for vacations. And finally, we pull into our parking spot, get out of the car, and we literally walked down a flight of stairs into a basement apartment. And it was at that moment that we confessed to each other that we had that $51,000 in credit card debt. And that was the aha moment that we said to ourselves, we are financially and physically living in a hole. We are in the ground, and that's where our financial state is too. And we said, what the fuck are we doing? We are two professionals working in the financial service industry, and we're not paying attention at all to what it is that we're telling other people to do. And it was at that moment that we decided to change things.
Exactly. So David and I, we hunkered down. We really did a spending analysis that many of you can access on our website to figure out what we were doing wrong. And when we did that spending analysis, it really highlighted what was going on in our financial life. It wasn't that, and this is a situation for most of us, it wasn't that we didn't have a decent income. We actually were earning good money. We were just spending unconsciously. We were living way beyond our means. And several categories stuck out for us. And it's quite interesting. Some of the several studies that have been done about LGBTQ finance in the last couple of years have highlighted that the way we were mismanaging our money is a lot of the ways that LGBT people are mismanaging our money today. So we did a couple things. One is we realized that we were spending over $400 a week dining out and $400 a week on groceries. Now,
at our worst, not every single week, but at our worst, we were doing that, and it was quite regularly.
It's quite regularly. So we were going grocery shopping unconsciously. We weren't going with any sort of a strategy or a menu. We were just buying whatever sort of sparked our fancy at that particular trip. And then we would also, after that, go out to happy hours and dinners and drinks, and so that spent a lot of money on that. So we figured out a way to really become meticulous with our grocery shopping and our dining out, and that included having a very strict grocery list and a menu that we stuck to week after week. And that helped us cut back our spending pretty significantly and helped us save about $30,000 that we could then put towards our credit card debt. We also stopped going out as much. We were the gays that were out every night. It was from Tuesday to Sunday, and Monday was the recovery day. And I know that a lot of you can identify with that, but we were at every club, every bar that we could go to every night of the week. And we realized that that wasn't a lifestyle that we could continue to live. As fun as it was sabotaging our financial future. So we didn't stop going out altogether. We just cut back going out. And we talked a little bit about that in our DFG Live last week on the Debt Free Guys Wall, about how we learned to better manage our social life using the Living Fabulously Social Life calendar. We also became very in tune with finding free and cheap things to do. It was, maybe you're not as naive as we are, but until we decided that we needed to hunker down and figure out what our problem was, we never really thought about finding free and cheap things to do. And in places such as Denver, and I know that Denver's not the only city that has this, there are tons of free things to do. There are tons of cheap things to do that your city offers, either different groups are hosting or the city's promoting, different organizations are having. So we just became a little bit more active in looking for those free and cheap things to do. And then we would make sure that we invited our friends to join us for those particular events. So even though we were dialing back going out, it wasn't that we were losing contact with our friends. Having a strategy, planning things ahead and inviting our friends to join us helped make sure that we were still staying relevant in our community. We still maintained relationships, but we weren't going out and spending as much money. And then we came up with a very strict plan to pay off our strategy to pay off our credit card debt. We knew how much money we were making. We knew how much money we were saving from our new strategy of cutting back. So we decided that we were going to pay put any savings that we had, any additional money that we earned, all towards our credit card debt. And that helped us pay off our credit card debt in 2.5 years. And a lot of what we talked about and more just now is included in our upcoming credit card payoff course, which is going to become available starting next week, January 13th. So more about that later. But just know that if you are intrigued with paying off your credit card debt, we do have a strategy for you, and that's something that we can certainly help you out with.
Yeah. So as John mentioned there, and as I started out with, and you've heard our backstory, we have a long history of being in the financial services industry. We have a long history of dealing with our own personal finances. And so that's part of the reason why we feel that we have a mission to help people in our community get out of debt, get on track financially, prepare for the future. So although there are other people out there like Dave Ramsey, Tiffany Aliche, Mr. Money Mustache, they all have their own methodology and ways of helping people. Some people are attracted to their voice. We have nothing against all of those people. In fact, we absolutely love what Tiffany Aliche does. She is very dedicated to helping African-American women get out of the poverty mindset and get into the abundance mindset. And she's doing a fabulous job at it. And so that is part of the reason why John and I have decided to continue to share our story, and one of the reasons why we think it's so important. So the second part of the question, not only the credibility question, but why is it that we are only talking to the LGBT community? Well, first of all, we're not only talking to the LGBT community, but the reality is that John and I have an LGBT voice. We come at our finances at a different way because we are two cis gay white men. There is
Are you gay?
there is
Did not know this.
there is an added value that we can provide to our community because we understand some aspects. So we're not just talking to our community, but it's because we have that experience of being a gay man, being a person in the queer community, that we understand some of the things that the queer community has gone through. Now, it's interesting. We believe that our personal money stories are made up of two things. One, they're made up of the story that our family helped us create, our parents, or the way that we grew up, that money story we were hearing there. But the other thing that informs us about the way we treat money is the community that we're in. If you're a cis white person, you have been living all of your life with there being financial advice dedicated to you. If you are an African American woman, it is only in the last probably 10 to 15 years that there has been financial advice that has been dedicated specifically to you. And John and I believe that our community needs that as well. So that's why we have this voice. And that's one of the reasons why we write for magazines or publications like Forbes, Go Banking Rates, Intuit's Turbo blog. You may know Intuit via TurboTax. We write for all of these publications because we know that there needs to be a queer voice when it comes to personal finance. And John's gonna link to an article here that we wrote last week in Forbes as to the reason why our community needs to be aware of. What is interesting is because we have this voice, organizations like MassMutual, Prudential, Experian, Honeyfi, all these organizations have reached out to us and said, how can we help the LGBT community become more aware of what's going on financially in the community? Please help us develop survey questions so that we can ask the appropriate questions for your communities so that we can see what it is that they need help with and then develop products around helping them or information around helping them. So that's part of the reason why we focus on the LGBT community.
But the other reason why we focus on the LGBT community is, when David and I got out of credit card debt, one of the first things that we started to do was we thought, well, we could use our combined experience in financial services and now our personal experience, having paid off our credit card, to write a book. And that's exactly what we did. We wrote a book, and we were a little bit naive, thinking that once you write a book, you become super successful. Oprah has you on TV, and you're able to help thousands and millions of people. That's not at all how it works, and so be it. But we learned that that what we did learn in that experience is that there is a community of other people trying to help their communities in financial services. So we went to a conference called FinCon. It's an annual conference we go to every year. And the first time we attended was 2015. And we went to this conference, and it's all personal finance bloggers, some famous media people, journalists and whatnot. And we learned that there are all these different people doing similar things to what David and I were doing at the time, a little bit of blogging, a little bit of social media. But they all had a specific niche that they were focused on. There were mommy bloggers, there were military spouses talking about personal finance in their community. There's Tiffany Elishe talking about personal finance in the African American women community. The African American women community now in the personal finance space is huge, and they've done a great job. Then of course there's the traditional, the white men, straight white men community, people talking to them. But we noticed that there was no one talking to the LGBT community. There was no one talking about our experience. And we thought, well, we're a gay couple and we've just overcome a tremendous hurdle. And we thought, well, if if no one's talking to our community, and we know from our experience in financial services at that time, trying to get financial services companies to market to and try to engage with our community was challenging. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to help our community our own way. And it was at that time that we decided, we had maybe been doing the Debt Free Guys business for about a year or two, but it was at that time that we decided maybe we need to go a little bit gay here. Not exclusively, but a little bit. And we've been enjoying it.
Right. Well, and there's another reason why. As John mentioned, we saw that no one out there was speaking to our community. It was either very specific to a niche like the Christian bloggers or the African American women bloggers, mommy bloggers. No one was speaking to our community, and we said, well, our community absolutely needs it. We need this kind of information. And if nobody is talking in a voice that we can understand, we're going to continue to ignore it. You see, John and I believe, and I hope that you believe this too, that we need to be a strong queer community. We have to be a strong queer community. With all the attacks that are happening to our community right now, we have to be as strong as we can be. But on top of that, we believe that one of the pillars of being a strong queer community is that we have to be financially strong. Because just think about it. All of the things that we need to do or want to do and we're fighting for in our community. We're fighting for equality. We're fighting for health rights. We're fighting for change politically. All of those things take money. It takes money to elect politicians that will fight for our equality. It takes money for organizations to be there and available for our LGBT youth, for trans people, especially trans women of color who have traditionally have no access to a lot of the medical needs that they have. That all of that takes money. And where is that money coming from? Well, unfortunately, the vast majority of that is coming from outside of our community. And it really should be the majority of it should be coming from inside of our community. We should be able to take care of ourselves. Because if something happens to those people outside of our community, to our allies, then what happens to us? We won't have those services. We won't have that support. If we can't take care of ourselves, no one will potentially take care of us. So it's very important that as a community, we believe that we have to stand up and do what's right financially for ourselves.
Exactly. And that's exactly why David and I do what we do. And if you read that Forbes article that we linked to earlier, it highlights a dominating problem in our community. And I think it's kind of ironic, despite all the problems we're having with student loan debt, still a leading financial concern in our community is amassing credit card debt. A lot of us have either a little bit, an annoying amount, or a lot of it, over a suffocating amount. And that's not ironically, I guess, because we're in the community, but that's exactly the struggle that David and I have, and that's why we're very passionate about this particular topic within all the personal finance topics that we cover. So we want to encourage you to take whatever steps you can to become free of credit card debt. And I think David and I feel like a good start for you, if you haven't already started on this journey with us, we'd like to encourage you to take the 7-day debt freedom challenge. It's a very simple 7-day challenge. You complete essentially 7 steps over 7 days, and you'll start to set the waves in motion to start improving your financial life.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as I get back to the original question, why is it that John and I have think that we can speak this way, and we have our history of serving or being in financial services, and then we think about the question of why are we serving just the LGBT community and we're not talking to everybody? When it really comes down to it, people are questioning whether or not our voice is the correct voice. And so John and I believe that there is a group of people in our community. There are lots of haters of personal finance in the LGBT community. It's very sad, but we believe that there are a small contingent, whether that's 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people who really do want to leave behind the fabulously broke life that so many in our community have, that really want to get ahead financially because they want to help our community. And we're thankful that you are part of that group.
Yeah, so just know it's these little steps that can lead to gigantic catalysts. David and I were talking earlier. It's, you know, obviously the LGBT community existed before Stonewall, but it was only because of Stonewall that we had all the monumental change and progress that we've had over the last couple of years. And so these are tiny financial steps that we can all take to improve our lives, and hopefully we'll see gigantic improvements in our financial futures down the road. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Maria and Joseph and Tony and everyone who is a part of this particular Career Money Live. We're very passionate about this, and we hope you can see that. We know that you're very passionate about this too, and we want to thank you for joining us. So that wraps up today's Career Money Live. Continue to give us your questions. They inform us for what you want. We want to make sure we continue to direct these and provide the value that you're looking for. And next week, we're going to talk about the fastest way to pay off credit card debt. So join us, same bat time, same bat station. We should call it the same gay time, same gay station, for the quickest way to pay off credit card debt. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.